Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we can all agree on this committee, as you've heard today, that despite the decline in mail volume, the Postal Service remains a vital link to information, goods, and services and connection for Americans. And this is even more true for rural districts like many of ours, like mine, certainly. More than 1/4 of the US population live in rural areas, and they deserve to get their mail on time too. I'm concerned that some of the cost-cutting proposals for the Postal Service will disproportionately disrupt rural communities and could jeopardize the timely delivery of life-saving medications, mail-in ballots, personal letters, cards, and financial documents. In particular, the Postal Service is in the process of implementing its regional transportation optimization initiative, which reduces end-of-day collection at post offices more than 50 miles from regional hubs, effectively slowing delivery time for people living in hard-to-reach areas. The closest regional hub or regional processing and distribution center to my district is in Seattle. That's more than 100 miles away from 17,000 constituents in Aberdeen and 150 miles away from 3,500 constituents living in Forks, meaning that constituents could expect a degradation of services under this RTO initiative. And my constituents are concerned, and I'm not surprised. They have every right to be. One of my constituents wrote to me concerned that these changes may compromise the ability of the Postal Service to carry out even essential functions, and they're particularly concerned about delivering ballots safely. And in a community where we are seeing small pharmacies, rural pharmacies close down, it's even more important that we preserve this last mile delivery of medication to rural communities like mine. The Postal Service is the lifeblood of rural America, my constituent wrote, where people rely on USPS to deliver goods and transmit information. The Postal Regulatory Commission, the regulatory body overseeing the Postal Service, has found that the RTO initiative will have significant negative impacts on delivery in rural communities and not produce significant savings. Mr. Renfro, in your view, is it reasonable to degrade service for rural communities for such modest, if any, savings?
The short answer is no. If I could quickly, I won't speak to either support or condemn this particular program as a whole. I would, however, like to say we absolutely should, at minimum, preserve service. While at the same time, if there are things the Postal Service can do to improve efficiencies without degrading that service, that's the type of thing that we engage with them on in this modernization effort. But it certainly starts with maintaining and improving service.
Definitely, I agree. The Postal Service is in fact required by law to provide prompt, reliable, and efficient services to patrons in all areas and shall render postal services to all communities. I think maintaining rural access is incredibly important. And this universal service obligation must always be our North Star for the Postal Service and for us as Congress members and oversight body. Despite this, we have seen continued proposals for privatization for parts or whole of the Postal Service and slashing the postal workforce. I also agree that we should be looking for efficiencies and modernizations wherever possible, but I think cutting the rural jobs, the rural delivery mechanisms that reach people in far-off areas like Forks on the coast of Washington State with one road that washes out every year like clockwork is incredibly important. Ms. Patel, how would privatization or other aggressive cost-cutting efforts interfere with the Postal Service's universal service obligations?
I mean, quite simply, privatization exists kind of orthogonally to universal service. They are not compatible. So if we wanted a private operator to adhere to what's required by law in terms of affordable, equitable, and universal service, it would need taxpayer funding because the current model wouldn't support that even for a private operator. So you can't avoid that by going to a private market. And the private operator would confront all of the same problems that the current postal service faces, which is just a decline in first-class mail that has historically been the most important leg of the stool in postal service funding.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I yield back.